Hello guys, my name is Aditya and today we'll be having a brief overview on the class concept in Python. Just like many other programming languages, high-level programming languages that support object-oriented programming concept, Python also supports this OOP concept, okay? And which means that there are classes and objects in Python. So first of all, what is a class? A class is just an encapsulation of some variables and some functions. That means it packs together some variables and some functions so that it can be represented as a unique identity. Okay? And what are objects? Objects are just instances of a class. So for example, if we just defined a class, it has no meaning until and unless we instantiate an object. Once we instantiate an object, then the variables inside the class gets its memory allocated in the memory, okay? Gets its space allocated in the memory. So before we instantiate an object, a class is just a box, nothing else, and just a box, yes, nothing else. And what are members? Everything inside the class, for example the variables, the functions, those are members of the class. Okay, so I think this overview about classes, objects and members is sufficient and we can directly go into defining a class. So for defining a class in Python, we use a class keyword. Okay, let us say this is a class and we want to write the class name as animal. Okay, and inside the class we can have variables or we can also have functions. So let us just define a function for now and let us name this function as display. Okay, and what this function does is it just prints that this is the display function of class animal. Okay, this is how a simple example of how a class is written in Python. Now along with the class, as I just say, if I just run this thing, nothing happens. It's just a box. Okay, so if we want this thing to print, then what we can do is we have to first uh, instantiate the class using a object. So let us say that a is the object and a is the object of class animal, so we write it this way. Okay, and if we want to call the member function, that is display, of this class, then what we can do is using that object we give a dot operator and we just write the name of the function or the variable that we want to call. So if we write display here, this should work fine. Okay, so one more thing, that we need to associate a self keyword. See, we have already learned about functions, right? If you have not, if you don't know about how functions are written in Python, then you can check out this video. It is given here. Okay, so we can pass parameters inside a function. So, but for class concept, if we are defining a function inside a class, we first need to give a self keyword, then only we can write the parameters corresponding to this function. Okay, so first we write a self. Why do we write this self keyword? That simply means that this display function belongs to this class. Okay, so now if I run it, it will work fine. Okay, so we need to write self. Now this was about classes, objects and members. This is a member, right, of this class, and if we define variables as well, it will be a member of that class. Okay, now let us talk about constructors and destructors. In the concept of classes, a constructor is a function that gets called whenever an object is instantiated, and the destructor is a function that gets called when the uh, at at the end of the execution of this class. Okay, at the end of the execution of this class, yes. So but see, this the we can use the concept of constructors here, but uh, destructors are not much useful in Python. For example, see, there are other uses of constructors and destructors as apart from just what I have told earlier, that constructors gets called right after instantiating an object, and destructors gets called after the work of the class is over. So constructors can be used to initialize the member variables of the class. Okay, for example, let me write here class, let's say student. Okay, class student, and this is how we write a constructor. Okay, def double underscore init, then again double underscore, and then we do this, and since this is also a function, we need to write self here. Okay, and then let us write name and department. Okay, and what we will do here is we will instantiate the variables of this class. Let's say name of student and self dot department, and what we will assign to this thing, the name of the student of this class, will assign the formal parameter name here, name, and we'll give department here. Okay, and let me just, this is a constructor, right? So what how can we instantiate an object here? What we can do is, let's say s1 is the object. Okay, and of class student, and I want to first pass a name here, right? Because see, this self need not be taken care here. It just means that this function is of this class, that's it. And this self uh, ahead of a variable means this variable is of this class, nothing else. Okay, so if I write here Aditya, and then if I write here CSE, okay, now there is no print statement here, so we need to get the variables and print it. So let's say s1 dot name of student, right? And print s2 sorry s1 dot department. So what this will do is, first it will create an object named s1 of class student, and it will pass these two parameters, where these two parameters will go directly into the constructors. This will take the position of name, and this will go into the position of department. This name, that is this, will be assigned to a variable name student, which is a member variable of this class, and this department will be assigned to this department, which is also a member variable of this class. And when we want to access those, since okay, we'll talk about public, protected, and private later, but it will be accessed for this case. Okay, see, first this print statement prints the name because this name has been assigned here, and this second print statement prints the department because this department has been assigned here. This is how a constructor works. Okay, and let me just show you something, that this is the purpose of a constructor. Okay, and what is the purpose of a destructor? The destructor is used to free up the memory of the class. Okay, whatever the memory was allocated for these variables, it will free up the memory. So this is the concept of constructors and destructors. But in Python there is a feature, just like Java, that it supports automatic garbage collection. Okay, so even if we do not call the destructor, it will work fine. But let me just show you by calling a destructor. This is constructor, and if we write def del and double underscore, so this is destructor. Okay. Print. This is how we write the destructor function in a class. Even if we don't write this destructor or this constructor, it is implicitly invoked in a class, just that it won't do anything because there is nothing written inside it, but it will always be implicitly invoked. So print, this is destructor. Okay, now what if I write here a delete statement, delete s1, right? Let's see what happens. So first the constructor is called, then these two statements are printed, and when we are deleting, the destructor is called. Even if we don't delete, it does not matter because it will automatically delete. Okay, this is the feature of Python. So we are done with the constructors and destructors. Now let's talk about a little bit about inheritance. So let's say we just use this thing, okay, student, and let's say we define another class called college. Okay, and what we do here is I'll just define the constructor self, not self, init. This is how we define a constructor, and we pass here self, and then let us pass here name, and then let us pass here first college name, C name, okay, and then student name, and then student department. Okay, and then we write here the same thing. I'll show you what I am trying to do, and I will not write this thing. So these are two independent classes, right? For now, what if I try to do here college dot init, right? C name, S name, and S department. Okay, students, college name, students name, and students department. So now if I try to instantiate an object, see, this will work fine, but let me just write the complete code once. Self dot c college name is assigned to C name. Self dot student name is assigned to, wait, I'll just write this code and I'll bring it back. So I have written the code, and let me just explain you this code. Okay, so first of all, what we'll be doing is, see, we'll just create an object of class student. Okay, this is the class student, and we'll talk about this thing later. We'll just create a object of class student, and we'll pass three values here. The first is the college name, the second is the name of the student, and the third is the name of the department. Okay, and these three values will go at these three positions initially into the constructor of the class student. Okay, because we are creating an object of the class student. So it will go, NERIST will go at C name, Aditya will go at S name, and CSE will go at S department, right? Students department. And what this will do is it will call the constructor of a different class, which will work fine. We don't need inheritance for this. Okay, and it will just assign the values. So these values are assigned here. Okay, and these three variables are just present here. It is not present in this class, right? Then what we are trying to do is we are trying to display the parent class. Okay, we are trying to display this thing, and then we are trying to display this thing. Okay, now see the concept of inheritance here. This is how we inherit. See, student belongs to college, right? So this is how we can say that student belongs to college. Inside student, we can just open a parenthesis and write the name of the parent class from where we want to inherit. Okay, and what we are inheriting here, we are inheriting the variables. Okay, we are inheriting the variables of the parent class, because these variables are just here, they are not in the student class. Okay, and this should work fine. So this is how inheritance is done, in this way. Okay, and we can access the variables of a parent class. So let me just run it and show it to you. Okay, there is some error, as department is not defined. I made, yes, here as department is not defined. So this was a little bit error. Now it is printing fine, right? So first it prints parent class info, right? Because we have first called the display parent function. So it prints parent class info, and it prints these three variables, right? It belongs to the same class itself. And then what it does, it calls the child display child function, and it prints child class info, and then it prints these three things. Okay, now if I just remove this thing, it won't work at all, because we are not see, this will print fine, this will print fine, because I already told you that we can do this thing. We can call the constructor of a different class and assign some values to it. Okay, but this second thing will not be printed, because we are not using inheritance. That means we cannot use the variables of a different class into this class. Okay, so this thing throws an error. Now, okay, this also throws an error, because inside the student there is nothing called display parent. Okay, so that is why inheritance is required. College. So now it can inherit the properties of its parent. This is the parent and this is the child. Now we have covered the inheritance in brief, not in detail. Now we can go to this access specifiers, that is public, private and protected. Okay, so why do we need this access specifier? See, what public access specifier is, by default we can access anything from any class. Okay, and we can also access it in the main function. That means that by default all the variables and all the member functions are public in nature. They can be accessed by anyone. And what is private? Private simply means that if I set this variable as private, okay, this is how we set private, we give a double underscore. If I set this variable as private, then this function, then this class or any other class cannot access this variable. Okay, will not be able to access this variable like we are accessing it here, right? It will throw an error. We cannot access this because this is private. And how do we write this is private? We just give a double underscore in front of the variable name. Okay, so I hope you understood what is private. Now let's talk about protected. Protected is a access specifier that allows us to access a variable within the inherited classes. Okay, if I just give a single underscore, that is the protected access specifier. Okay, if I just give a single underscore in front of a name of a variable, then that variable can only be accessed by its inherited class. Okay, so I hope you understood this thing. If you did not understand, kindly comment down below. I would like to see what you guys are understanding and how much am I able to explain. So this I'll just keep this as protected and I'll just keep this as private. Okay, so let's see what happens. So if I change it here, I need to change it everywhere wherever I have mentioned this thing. Okay, so I need to change it here as well, and I need to change it here as well. So let me just run this thing. See, parent there was no problem, but for the child class to access the department, it is a problem because this department is private in nature. That means even its inherited class or maybe any other class cannot access this department. It is a private variable of this class itself, so it cannot be accessed here. Okay, so this is how access specifier is used. If I just make this protected, if I just do this thing, I just cut one underscore here and I just delete one underscore here, so these two variables become protected. This is already private, sorry, this is already public because we have not used any access specifier here. By default it is always public. Okay, so it will print, now it will print fine because this student class is accessing, sorry, is inheriting from the college class, and in case of inheritance we can allow this protected variables. Okay, let me just run this. So it is working fine, but what if I just create an instance of, let's say, C1 is assigned to college. No, I need to create another class. So I hope you understood this thing, and if you did not understand, you are always free to comment down below. I'll try to make another video on this. And so thank you for watching. Have a great day ahead, and if you like the video, hit the like button and also share it with your friends. So thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.